Well, welcome everyone. I hope that you're all doing the responsible thing right now, at least if you're in Spain and staying home, and working from home. I see that we have people here from everywhere. I've seen people from Netherlands, a lot of people from Spain, a lot of Jordanians out there, Kuwait, Qatar, Dubai. Welcome everyone. In this session, we go a little bit deeper in the solar energy opportunities in Jordan. And we have with us today 3 top experts in the topic. I'd like to invite you guys to introduce yourselves. So Samir, why don't you quickly introduce yourself and your company, please? Just make sure you unmute your microphone. Yeah.
Done. Good morning, everybody. Hope you're doing fine. Please stay home. This is the first, most valuable advice. My name is Samer Zawaide. I'm an independent engineer working in Jordan in the renewable energy efficiency field since the start in 2009. I'm also the president of the Association of Energy Engineers, which is one of the largest energy associations in the world with 18,000 members in 105 countries. And I hope you benefit from this small presentation.
Thank you very much, Samer. Let me just ask also Maher to introduce yourself, please.
Good morning, everybody. My name is Maher Beshat from Jordan. I've been 30 years in business, power business, in the Jordan and the Arabic countries. Currently, I am the CEO for Aquapower Jordan Renewables Company, established recently in Jordan. And thank you very much for joining this webinar, and I hope that everybody will be safe and the families as well. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Maher. So that's Maher and Samir from Jordan. And last but definitely not least, Imran, could you please introduce yourself shortly?
Hello, everybody. Welcome to the webinar. I'm Imran Syed. I work in Dubai for a company called Enerwhere. We are basically, the expertise is in off-grid systems mostly and in energy storage. Personally, I've got a PhD in power electronics, and I have led the storage efforts within Enerwhere, installing around 12 megawatt hours of off-grid and on-grid systems in the last year. So I'll be talking more about how storage is going to play a role in large renewable integrated grids, which is Jordan. Welcome, stay home. That's again an advice that I think everybody should keep giving. I'm also home, just trying to force my kids out. But yeah.
So if they burst in, we know what's happened.
I've locked the door.
We're fine.
I've locked the door and my son is just trying to break in. So yeah.
All right. So we might see some children that are coming in and out. All right. So, being mindful that everyone's working from home. Thank you very much for joining us. We hope, and we've always believed that actually webinars were a way to reach a lot of people, learn from a lot of people and very easily, from your office, from your home. So this is why I think we're also having like an increment in attendee numbers. So this is really good to see. And welcome everyone. Right. I'm going to ask Samir first to please prepare your presentation for your presentation. The way that we're going to do it is we're going to have 3 presentations and then we're going to take questions. Okay, you guys can send your questions through the Q&A box anytime, and we are recording this session and we will send you the materials as well. So Samir is almost ready. So I just wanted to, before Samir starts, let you know that, for us to be able to spend time putting this content together, inviting the speakers, etc., is thanks to our sponsors that help us, with funds to put this together. And I'd like to thank STI Nordland and Sterling and Wilson for the opportunity to work on this particular topic. Samir, I can see your presentation perfectly and I can hear you. So you go ahead, please.
Perfect. Thank you very much, Belen. And we have also to thank the organizers and especially Anna, who is guiding us through this Zoom seminar. I'm very happy today to share this presentation, and I'm very proud as well in all the accomplishments that we have accomplished in Jordan since the start of the renewable energy movement. In general, in Jordan, we started after the financial crisis in 2008. The oil prices went up to $147, and we had to find a new resource. So we moved into our local resources, which is the renewable energy. So renewable energies are available everywhere. At the start of the let's say the renewable energy sector, the concentration was more on wind energy because of the because it was more mature at that time. But quickly the solar PV industry took over because of the excessive development in technology and lowering the price. And right now we are very proud of the accomplishments, and hopefully we can do more. A little bit about myself. As I said, I'm the president of the Association of Energy Engineers, which is the biggest association in the world for energy management, and we have several branches, and in Jordan as well. Well, today we will talk about certain topics, and we'll talk about the solar resource, the stakeholders in Jordan, projects, opportunities, the new sector coupling that is going to happen in education, economics, the CO2 emissions, of course, and jobs and sustainability. Now, Jordan is number 4 in the world in the quality of solar PV. So this is a natural resource. So it's like oil. We have the sun, and this is the solar PV map. So it's a great opportunity, and we have to utilize it. So investors from all over the world are flocking in, and we've witnessed that throughout the past 10 years, and it will continue to grow because it's a local resource, and we are going to utilize it. But we have to get smarter, and we have to develop new technologies, integrated, and we'll talk more in details. So as a country, this is one of the main resources that we concentrate on in the future to develop. Now, there are many stakeholders in the sector, and the regulatory framework is the most important thing that a country can establish in order to integrate the solar PV or the renewable energy into its all economical sectors. So we start with the policy. The policy was started with the Ministry of, with MIMER, the Ministry of Energy and Mineral Resources, and under that we have the EMRC, which is the Energy and Minerals Regulatory Commission. Then we have the Ministry of Environment and Ministry of Public Works and Housing. And we have the municipalities, of course. It is like GAM, Greater Amman Municipality. They have regulations for installing the net metering systems. And we have the Contractors Association, the Jordan Construction Contractors Association, Jordan Engineers Association. And then we have a fund to increase the penetration of renewable energy. It's called the Jordan Renewable Energy and Energy Efficiency Fund. Of course, all this electricity has to be fed into the grid, national grid. So we have the, after the generation, we have the National Electric Power Company, NEPCO, and then we have the distribution companies. And all of these, they need money. So we have the Central Bank of Jordan supporting this requirements. In addition to the Ministry of Environment, we have the Royal Scientific Society, and we have the Royal Society for the Conservation of Nature. And we have also the GISMO, which is the standards and institutes that allows for all the material to go in. So you have to get high quality material. And of course, we have to learn much more from Imran about storage. And we have also the Department of Land and Survey, which is changing the type of land use to integrate more solar into the country. And we have the Jordan Chamber of Industry, which is playing a very, very important role right now in one of the biggest projects that is coming up in Jordan. There are two main types. So you have two main roads to use solar PV. You can you can be an investor and you can install a utility scale projects. So the utility scale projects are feeding the grid directly. So these projects are are owned by the country, or they are owned by independent power producers and investors. And then you have the net metering. So the net metering, any a consumer who has an electricity meter, they can cover 100% of their annual electricity needs by using a net meter, either on-site or off-site. So if you have enough space at your facility, like a rooftop or a car park, ground mount, or a metal building, then you can install solar PV. And if you don't have enough space, then you can go outside into the distribution areas. We have 3 electricity distribution areas, north, middle, and south, and then you can install your net meter. So overall, so far we have installed the 2019 figures. We installed 1,185 megawatts. So this is 1.18 gigawatts, and we have 222 megawatts under construction. The utility, of course, it's more important because it's feeding the grid and it's going everywhere. And then we have the net metering. These are the figures. We have about 16,000. The latest published figures was 15,300. So I'm estimating 16,000, maybe 17,000. And it will grow much more in the next years. Now, there are different opportunities in the next phase, in the next few years. We have the community solar. So the community solar, we have big projects now with the Chamber of Industry, 100 megawatts. So basically, a group of industries, about 50, 70 industries, will share a piece of land, about 2 million square meters, and install up to 3 megawatts each. And then we have projects for the lithium-ion storage on the utility scale and on the distribution. So we will see some regulations coming up for integration of renewable energy. There is a lot of work going on and research into green hydrogen. So all the excess energy might be used by this green hydrogen. And there is a talk for development of about 1.2 gigawatts for that use. And of course, the demand side management, it's a very important sector. As, for example, one of the main areas that we're looking into is the electric vehicles, and to store electricity from solar PV during the peak hours between 10 to 2, so you can absorb all the peak, all the electricity during the sun peak hours without affecting the grid. And of course, we will put some drivers into that. And of course, there is the zero to grid requirements with the, it's coupled, most probably it will be coupled with the lithium ion. And it's very important, of course, for energy security. And it will be definitely required in the next phase. So the sector coupling, instead of developing a big or an overall renewable energy strategy, we will see more in-depth strategies coupled with the different ministries. So the Ministry of Transportation is right now consuming the largest amount of energy in the country, and this will have their own dedicated efforts to integrate more solar PV and integrate more renewables in the light transportation, like the electric vehicles or the medium buses. Like we have the Amman Rapid Transit. There is a lot of talk into moving into electric buses as well. And then you have the water sector. Jordan is a very poor country in water as well, but we need to talk with the about pumped hydro storage. So we will take maybe around 10 million meter cubes and in one of the dams and start the pumped hydro storage business. And in addition, Jordan will have to integrate desalination into the water strategy, and that might be also from solar PV depending on the economics. In the agriculture, we have about 20,000 farms, and all of these farms will slowly be moving into integration of solar PV. Already we have around 300 and maybe 500 farms with solar PV on-grid and off-grid. And in the industrial sector, of course, there's a lot of work. Now we will have a big boom in the industrial sector because of national security and the importance of manufacturing everything in each country. So there will be a big boom in the industrial sector. In the education, we are moving at several levels. So we have technical centers for educating the technicians, and this is the solar PV Center of Excellence, the Jordanian German Center of Excellence for solar PV training in Mafra and serving the Mafraq area and Amman. And of course, at the university level, we have about maybe, I would say, conservative figure, 10 to 15 universities with undergraduate and graduate degrees, master degrees in renewable energy, energy management in specific. Of course, we have at least 10, 15 training centers offering training in different kind of solar PV, and a lot of upskilling for the already workforce in place. The economics of the solar PV is incredible. It's just incredible. And this graph is showing you the cost of kilowatt hour in Jordan. So the cost of kilowatt hour in Jordan, this is in the past 7-8 years. Let's say it peaked in 2014 because of the gas crisis. We reached about 22 US cent to produce 1 kilowatt hour. And then we had the first expression of interest and the second expression of interest. So in 2011, the prices were 16.7 US cent per kilowatt hour, dropped to about 6.9 US cent per kilowatt hour in 2014. And the 2018 prices were 2.55 US cent. And of course, if you are a consumer and you are installing solar PV system, so you are installing it by yourself, the government is not paying anything. So the cost for the government is actually zero. But of course, there are different problems with the overall picture. But I'm focusing only on the solar PV prices, which are incredible. And now the economies all over the world are really suffering. So the solar PV is one solution that everybody is going to move toward because it's just cheapest. And so the technology has to evolve at a very fast rate to integrate more renewable energy into the grid. Everybody has to be worried right now about climate change, because we witnessed the effect of a pandemic and not listening to scientists. So the scientists are saying that we have 12 years before we have irrecoverable changes, and we are witnessing climate change everywhere in the world, and we're suffering billions, like the Katrina and in Jordan, casualties and losses every year, millions of JDs because of the climate change. So we have to move into renewable energy very, very fast, and it has to become stable. And we have to move into clean renewable energy throughout the world. So in Jordan, the emission factor that we are adopting as per the Royal Scientific Society for 2019 is 690 grams per kilowatt hour. So you take this number and you multiply it by the kilowatt hour, and then you get an emission factor and emission number, how much metric tons has been. So this picture is showing the utility scale and the wind and the net metering and how much we have produced kilowatt hour from the solar only. is about 1,440 gigawatt hour. Those are the 2018 figures. 2019 figures are not published yet. So we're talking about a good number, and hopefully we can use this number into a carbon market, because we are developing our we developed already our bylaw for the climate change. So we will be developing the carbon market coupled with the renewable energy market. The renewable energy, solar PV is really creating, has created about 500 companies out of zero within 7 years, I would say, or now 8 years, and thousands of people, and direct and indirect manpower. So we have engineers in sales, estimation, design, procurement, installation, testing, commissioning, maintenance, banking, HR, project management, and finance. So it's a big opportunity for everybody, and it will continue to increase, and I think will double in the next few years. And of course, sustainability is a big word. Everybody wants to have a stable economy, and we have an abundant resource from solar PV at a very low cost, and the technical support is available, and we have to move into integrating more renewable energy very fast in the next few months. We have an educational system, we have qualified manpower, and we are moving towards our national security as a prime target, and we have to, of course, be responsible and reduce the emissions. So this is my presentation for today. Hope it is worth your time.
Much, Samer. In fact, you have a lot of questions, so if you
Okay.
can stop sharing the screen so that we can allow Maher to share his. Just at the top. Yeah, very good. And now, Maher, I'm going to invite you to do the same, and also unmute yourself. And Samer, the questions that are on the box, you can very easily answer them by text if you like, whilst Maher gives us his presentation. I'm not really sure, depending how you guys go, we might not have a lot of time at the other side. So if you can put that in a large screen, I can already see it, Maher, but it's just, okay. Okay, perfect. You're ready to go then.
Yeah. Good morning, everybody. Thank you, Bilin. Thanks, Samer, for your valuable presentation about the potential opportunities for PV in Jordan. And welcome everybody in this webinar. I would like to talk about Jordan AquaPower experience in Jordan for PV. And as you know, AquaPower is one of the largest investors in the area for power and water desalination. AquaPower started business in Jordan in 2011 by acquiring Sijco, which was at that time the largest power generation in Jordan utility. And then they started to explore the PV opportunities in Jordan. We have participated in round 2, the PV, and that was in Mafrag, where AquaPower have submitted the lowest tariff for the for the 4 companies that were qualified. This project in Mafrag, I want to talk first on Risha, which is recently we have commissioned in 29 December and become online. This project is 50 megawatt, is located near the Iraqi border at the far east of Jordan. And this is a very remote site. And if you can see from the solar map, it is one of the promising sites in Jordan. This project, we have started working with the government to materialize it in 2017. We have signed the PPA with the government, and we have assigned an EPC contractor who was Sterling and Wilson. And construction started in 2019 in February. And we have commissioned the plant and become online, commercially operated in December, 1st of December 2019. As you can see, this is the location of the site. It's 2,000 million to 2,000 kilometers by 1,000 kilometers. So it's a very big site, and you can see that we were considering in the layout of this site that we have two small valleys. So we were considering that from environmental perspective. This one. The project now is currently under operation. The inverters, we were secured them from Centerno from Italy, and the modules from Chint from China, and the tracker system was from Next Tracker. This is the picture of the project after being fully installed. As you can see, nothing in that area except this place. It is a remote place, and really it was a big challenge for ACWA Power and for the EPC contractor to establish there this project by building an accommodation, and all the employees were there in a camp for almost 1 year until the project being installed and commissioned. As you can see in this slide, we have the notice to proceed in September 18, and the energization was in September 19, and the commercial operation 30th of October 19. The other project that we were working on it, and it was before really a Risha project, is Mafrag 1, which is part of round 2. The government launched it in 2016, and it is 50 megawatt located in Mafrag Governorate, which is about 60 kilometers from Amman, where this is a qualified zone for investors, and they have a training center. As Samer was saying, it is for the German-Jordan Training Center. We are utilizing this plant, training this facility on the equipment. This project, we have started round 2. The first investor in one of the 4, we were the first one of 4 investors in this round, and we have built it, and we have commissioned the plant in 30th of December 2018, 1 year almost before the Risha project. The plant is working very well, and we were taking the equipment through an EPC contractor, Chinese EPC contractor, Northwest Electric. The modules were from China, Chint company. The tracker system were from Spain, and the inverters were from Power Electronics in Spain. Another project now in Jordan, we are working on it, actually, is the battery storage. We have submitted a proposal for 2 by 30 megawatt hour, and this project is under evaluation by the government, and we are one of the 6 qualified companies that we are going to bid for this job. This is really what the ACWA Power currently investing in Jordan, and we are looking to have more and more investments, depends on the potential opportunities. However, currently we are waiting really to see the strategy of the government for the renewables and for the power sector in general. we were promised that this strategy will be ready last year. However, because of many variables in the government, it was really postponed until maybe next month or on May. We will have the opportunity to see this strategy. The strategy will summarize the actual potential projects that will be established in Jordan in a utility scale, big size projects, and the technology that's going to be used for each of these projects. So we are waiting to see this strategy next month or the month later. Other thing that we are really concerned in Jordan is to see the grid of the off-taker to be a smart grid. This matter requires really a lot of investment, and we hope that the government can secure enough finance to enhance the grid to be a smart grid so that can take more than 20% of renewables. Because now Jordan almost have more than 20%. A lot of utility companies, as Samir was presenting, it is more than 20% of the total capacity. So if any more renewables going to be injected onto the system, then the grid shall be enhanced and investment shall be secured to enhance the grid. Otherwise, the situation in Jordan will become as is, yani no more investments other than battery storage. And anyway, all this I think will be clear in the strategy that's going to be launched by the government soon. Thank you very much for your attention, and I'm available.
Thank you very much, Maher. Can I ask you to stop sharing your screen, please? And so that I can actually ask Imran to share his. Make sure that you unmute your microphone, Imran. And the questions are going up and up. You know, already Samir is answering some of them. Maher, you can join that effort too, but we have 41 open questions at the moment. So there is definitely a lot of questions out there between all of you. So we'll see. Hopefully we'll be able to attend to a few of those afterwards. Can you just make that in larger? I can see your presentation, but I can see it. Oh, perfect. Go back to the beginning, please, Imran, and unmute yourself. Maybe I can do it. Let me check. There, I unmuted you. You're good. Just put it in large again. Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah,
hello,
perfect.
everybody. So I want to talk more about, I think, the two previous speakers. Thank you, Samir and Maher, for your presentations. I think they're bigger experts in solar in Jordan specifically. So I'm going to focus a little bit less, not repeat what they've said, and just give a brief overview of Jordan, and then talk about a few case studies where what we've done is we've reached on smaller scale grids, we've reached that level that Maher is talking about, right? Where beyond 20%, it gets a little harder to control, even on smaller grids where you have a diesel generator. And we've done a few projects where we've been able to cross that percentage, that penetration using storage as a buffer. So I'll be talking about 3 case examples on those smaller grids and how this is also applicable in larger grids, which is where I think Jordan is possibly going to go. To start off with, I think energy storage is and has been an important, will become a very important part of the grid as we go forward. And Jordan is at the forefront of that battle because they've been so proactive in promoting solar, as you heard from Samir and Maher, right? The installations for battery storage are going to be in the gigawatt hours scale as we go ahead, right? And the Middle East specifically, and even Jordan, are going to be leading this way to an extent. I think Jordan will start because they're the first people who will need it. But even in the UAE and across these places, there are already pilot projects happening. There's multiple gigafactories coming up. And we have personally, over the last couple of years, been in touch with over 50 to 60 suppliers of storage systems. And we've seen the prices of storage drop dramatically over that period, right? To give you a brief overview of why I think Jordan is going to be at the forefront of this, as was already discussed a little bit by Maher in the end, is that if you look at the amount of solar installations that they've done in the last few years, they're going to be very soon at a point where greater than 20% on they're going to reach more than 20% renewables on the grid. This is going to have issues in terms of they're going to be hitting close to their peak in terms of solar capacity. So then they'll have choices of running inefficient regular conventional generation, which will be running for spinning reserves, or they'll need to go to storage. And who's going to take care of the frequency? Who's going to account for massive drops in PV? We've seen in our plants an 80% drop in PV. Though you have very clear skies, I mean, the Middle East is blessed with great solar, but one small cloud that passes over your solar field could give you like more than 50% drop in solar over a few seconds. Who's going to take that up, right? Who's going to there's ramp rate control, there's n number of these things, and storage is and will become an ideal candidate. I've just put one screen here just to give you an overview of what I think is going to happen in Jordan. Is essentially, you can see that they're already at 7.5% of solar penetration. This is even in 2018. I'm sure it's higher now, talking about Maher's new plants coming on and a bunch of other plants coming on. In future projects, I think by 2022, they expect to have up to 2.2 or 2.5 gigawatts of solar on their system. The peak power in Jordan, the peak demand in Jordan, I think is around 2.5 to 2.7 gigawatts. Now, when you've got solar that close to your peak, like, where do you go? You've basically recreated a scenario that you see on a very small plant where you have a generator that cannot take any solar in, right? So where does it go, right, when that load comes? And that's where storage is going to play an increasingly important role. And there are studies that show that by 2023, the solar plus storage will become cheaper than running a natural gas peaker plant. Now, if it makes economic sense, and if it allows you to throw in more solar on your system, cuts down on CO2 emissions, and it's economically viable, then there is no reason this is not going to happen. And there was like the project that Maher was talking about, the 60 megawatt hour was one of the largest systems in the Middle East, right? Tenders. It's still, I think, in other process. Hopefully we'll see that come to fruition very soon, but storage is going to become a necessity. And I think Jordan will set the example on that, right? Hopefully the policies and everything will be set accordingly, but it'll become a need at some point, not just a fancy pilot project. To talk about storage, now I'm going to talk about a little bit more about what the storage supply chain looks like and where cost reductions can possibly come from in the future, right? Storage is not just one battery, right? Now, if you pick up a single battery system, that when you connect it to the grid, there's multiple components that go into it. There's going to be the cells that you have manufacturers like Panasonic, Samsung, and increasingly a number of manufacturers from China doing this. There's going to be, then those go into a battery rack that then comes up with a battery management system, which then gives you DC power. Now, that then has to be connected to a power conversion system, which then converts that into something that will then be able to connect to your grid. And there's control systems, and each of these suppliers are very different. Now, if you you can get prices for a fully containerized system from companies like Tesla, from Narada in China, etc., who will put all this together for you, put a nice margin on top of that and sell it to you. But increasingly, we do think it is possible to, if you go down that supply chain and procure components at an individual level, put those together, you can cut down the cost of these systems. To give you an idea, I think it is possible to cut down the cost of these systems by 20 to 30% in terms of dollars per kilowatt hour if the containerization is done locally. But for this, you're going to need a lot of local expertise. You're going to need a lot of expertise in how to put these things together, which is slightly more complex right now than a PV system, but will become standardized, which is what Enerwhere is trying to do at the smaller scale here, right? We are trying to be locally containerizing. We're right now doing our first pilot where we're containerizing locally and building our own control systems. It's a special expertise that is still not yet globally there. But I think individually, if countries like Jordan start doing that, where storage is a requirement and start being, and then you will need to depend less on containerized systems from other countries, right? Because that's to give you an idea of who are the players out there, right? There's Tesla that basically takes cells from Panasonic, Samsung, does the entire integration and gives you a full product. It's a great product. We've used it. The prices are coming down. It's technically one of the best that we've seen on the market. but that's one company that does it, right? Then there's Testworld, there's Alpha ESS, and we're going to increasingly see, I think, the chemistry of storage move from lithium ion NMC to lithium ion phosphate, right? Which is slightly bulkier, but it's also cheaper. And China is really pushing that, right? If you look at Narada, CATL, and all these companies, they're pushing LFP. And Tesla has primarily done lithium ion NMC technology, but recently they've announced that they're going to a partnership with CATL and get LFP batteries for their cars, which I'm sure will soon move. They'll move in the same direction for their grid storage systems. So this is basically that supply chain, and depends on where somebody plays in that, you can get cost reductions. If you go right to the end and get a full solution from somebody, including software development and everything together, there's going to be a price for that. But if as a country you're able to develop some local expertise and get some local players to be able to integrate for you, I think that can possibly help your costs come down. But that's an expertise that not a lot of people have yet. But I think it will increasingly happen. Now, what I'm going to talk about is a little bit in terms of hybrid systems, because essentially in a smaller setup, we've already reached that stage where the solar penetration has reached levels where I need storage to be able to increase that penetration. It's a good testing ground for storage and these technologies, because the cost of power on a diesel generator based grid is a lot higher than what you see on the grid. To give you an example, if your diesel price, it is crashing right now considering the oil prices, but for a general diesel price that was in the last year or two, your cost of power can be as high as 30 to 40 cents a kilowatt hour. Now, on that sort of a cost of power, solar makes immediate sense, and even storage, though it has not reached really low cost levels yet, starts making sense immediately. And that's why we've been pushing towards that. And if you're looking at, so I'm going to present from here 3 case studies of what we've done on very low penetration grid, how we've used storage, how we've used storage on a medium penetration grid, and how we've used it on a high penetration system, right? So we're going to look at the first one, right? This is a site office that we've been supplying in Dubai for the last 3 years, where we use storage for 2 functionalities, right? One is to improve your efficiency of the generators that are used. We do not have a lot of solar on this site, as you can see on the brown line, essentially here, because there wasn't enough space. But we still brought in storage to do 2 things, right? We improved the efficiency of the generation by peak shaving and ensuring that your conventional generation runs at its optimal efficiency at all times. And secondly, by storing some energy when the loads are low and your conventional generation is very inefficient, we were able to switch to a battery through the night operation, right? So this is a very low penetration scenario where storage, I would not say completely is economically viable yet, but it does have functionalities. And you can compare this to maybe in the West more, where there's an open market for ancillary services, right? Where if you can do frequency support, if you can do reactive power compensation, you get paid for those services. And that has become increasingly competitive in Western markets, but the Middle East, it's still, there are, because it's not an open market here yet, right? There is no ancillary services market here. And maybe Samir and Mahar can tell us if there is, I don't think there is that market available in Jordan as well. But when that market is open, it is beginning to increasingly make sense for just ancillary services, right? Not talking about shifting solar or not talking about storing excess solar. The second one is a more interesting one where we've hit. So if you look at the load curves that we're looking here at a much smaller scale, it is, I think, where Jordan will be in 3 years, right? You've got a load of around 150 kilowatts. Jordan will be at 2.5 megawatts, let's say. And the solar is at that level, right? You've hit the solar. If you look at the solar curve, it is exactly where that load power is. And your generator is essentially forming that duck curve that we talk about, right? Where the solar is essentially replacing most of the generation during the day. Now, when you're so close to that load curve, one thing you can do if you do not have storage is you will have to curtail a lot of it or not install the solar in the first place, because you have to run your conventional generation efficient enough, and you have to have enough load for them to take over, right? In this case, we've used a Tesla power pack to sort of balance out that system during that generation point, right? And you can see the battery constantly, before the constantly takes in that excess solar, right? And manage. If you look at the curve at the bottom, this is how terrible that load is, right? You can see the solar on, this is a particularly bad day where the solar was going, because of clouds, was very erratic, and the load is also very erratic on this client. Now you need to control the system, and the only way to do this without curtailing the solar a lot is if you put in storage. If you do not have storage here, you will have to put in you'll have to cut down the solar consumption, solar that you install on this grid. I'm sorry if you can hear my kids, they're screaming from outside the door, but okay.
It's very cute. Don't worry about it.
some of the things that you have to deal with when you're at home. But this is a prime example of where I think Jordan is going to hit. Now, what is critical over here is the cost of the batteries to be able to do this. The second thing is going to be your control systems, which will have to be increasingly complex and better than and compared to what you have on just a plain solar system, which will have to deal with that grid. On a grid level, it's going to be much more complex, and building this out is going to be an issue, right? And it's going to be a challenge that needs to be solved. And I think if it's solved on the local level, as I mentioned earlier, it's going to be more cost effective. The third one is a specific plant where we're able to reach 90% penetration of renewables on a smaller system. This is economically viable for diesel systems, especially if your diesel price is high. But at the grid, I don't think we will be here for a while. I hope we can be where we can hit 90% renewables, but it will still be a while, is my guess, unless storage drops dramatically to maybe $50 a kilowatt hour, which I hope happens. But it'll be this is the future, maybe in 20 years, right? Or hopefully in 10 years. So here, as you can see, we're running essentially, there's no generators coming on. In winter, we've basically got the solar charging up the batteries during the day, supplying all the load. And at night, we've got the whole system running on batteries. In summer, when the load is slightly higher, the generators do come on from the grid. The grid consumption essentially comes on for a few hours and runs at optimal efficiency. So here we've got like 90% penetration. This is where I hope our grids can be in the future. But that's basically an example of what we can see. I do think energy storage prices, based on where they are in off-grid systems, especially, depends on three factors. Depends on your diesel price, depends on your cost of storage, and depends on what sort of returns the investors are looking at, right? So this is where, considering diesel prices in some places, if you're looking at $1 a liter diesel price, storage makes immediate sense. I think those systems should go to complete solar storage very soon, including in Jordan or wherever. But if you've got low diesel prices and if you've got subsidized diesel prices, that is a problem. For example, in countries like Saudi Arabia, it's going to be a big challenge. Considering where the oil price is right now, unfortunately, the cases for storage is getting worse. We've actually put off certain investment decisions even within Enerwhere right now because the diesel prices simply don't make sense. If you're replacing diesel on your grid, or if you're replacing conventional generation on your grid, be it your grid or on a small mini grid, the cost of that diesel or the conventional fuel matters. If what you're replacing is not that expensive, then it makes your case a little bit worse. Solar is by far cheaper, no matter what the diesel price is, no matter what it is. As Maher mentioned, I think UAE was at 1 point something cents, the latest bid here, right? So solar makes complete sense, but the real problem is that you cannot complete that grid with solar, right? You've got nighttime consumption, you've got other things, and that's where storage comes in. And when you combine solar with storage, we will get there. It depends on a bunch of factors within country to make that economically viable, but I do think it is going to happen. And that's basically my presentation. I think I can get my email from the organizers, or I'll put that in there. Happy to answer any questions.
Thank you very much, Imran. Very interesting presentation. Okay, if you can just stop sharing so that we can see you all much closer. This is great. So, okay, I got a lot of questions. Don't worry, we're recording the session. If you arrived a little bit late, you'll be able to review the whole thing, and we will send you a link to the recordings and also the materials. So there's been a lot of questions about this. And Samara and Maher have been like answering, and we have 46 questions open, but like 22 already been answered. So clearly these guys are doing a very good job. They just can't keep up with demand. So I'd like to ask a few live, if I may. Samir, I thought that you wanted to answer one of them live. You had marked it that you wanted to answer it live. Don't forget to unmute your microphone so that we can hear you.
Can you repeat that again, please?
Sure. You had marked one of the questions that you wanted to answer live.
Maybe that's by mistake, but if you have any question, I can answer it live, no problem.
So let me ask one of the questions that I thought it was quite interesting. Are there any plans to turn this electricity after satisfying the national grid demand into chemical bound form, you know, like hydrogen,
yes.
etc.? This is an important question, isn't it? Considering that everyone is going toward biofuels right now.
Yes, of course. We have a French company that submitted a proposal for the government, and they are serious about taking up to 1,200 megawatts of megawatt hour of renewable energy, and they will work on 3 phases. The first phase is 400 megawatt hour. So it's up to them to submit the correct proposal, and it's up to the government to approve it. But there is a lot of talk, and the hydrogen will be, the green hydrogen will be used in the industry applications. So this is feasible because they're talking about kilowatt hour price of 2 US cent, and I think we are very close to be below the 2 US cent solar PV price. So even if we don't have electricity, I think we will have a developer that is ready to go into partnership with this company and provide renewable energy solar PV at less than 2 US cent, and it will be integrated immediately, I think. So yes.
Okay. One of the questions here as well, this is for all of you, by the way. This is probably, Maher, this is a good one for you. It asks here, do you think the CSP or concentrated solar power could be considered in the planning of Jordanian policy matters makers in terms of, you know, providing the nighttime solar availability?
Yes, Bilin, this is really a very interesting subject in Jordan. Now the policymakers are working on it, especially the Ministry of Energy. We in AquaPower had similar plans in Morocco and in Dubai, and we have given a brief proposal for the government that we can do similar projects in Jordan. And the government was a little bit keen on having this thermal storage so that they can benefit from at night generation. What we have been updated by the Ministry of Energy that they are going to consider 50 megawatt plant CSP, and it's going to be located in Ma'an area. But again, this will be very clearly known when the strategy being launched next month.
Okay, there's a couple of questions here. I don't know whether this is for Maher, maybe for Imran. For existing projects already, large-scale projects, wouldn't it be interesting, or wouldn't it be like economically feasible to put storage in them, like lithium ion storage?
I do think increasingly it will become more competitive, and we are seeing in some places that it is being competitive. I mean, we're seeing, I think, bids of up to 5 cents per kilowatt hour for solar plus storage in the range of 4 to 6 cents per kilowatt hour, which is not bad at all. But yes, I think he's right. It will become more competitive. It is already becoming competitive, but this depends on the local scenarios, what your cost of generation is from conventional sources, what you're depending on, but yeah, I mean, I agree. It is the future, and it will happen.
So what's the LCOE for a PV plus storage facility? Anyone? I drop it out there.
It could vary, right? I think it would be, if you're looking at cents per kilowatt hour, you're probably looking at, as I mentioned, between 4 to 7 cents a kilowatt hour, right? Right now, that's the range. So solar is at 1 point something, but I think as soon as it drops below 4 cents, that's when you're actually maybe even cheaper than just the cost of gas that you get, right? If you think about it, maybe. But that's where it is at right now. In terms of cost of storage, because there was another question on cost of storage right now. If you're looking at large systems of 100 megawatt hour, even from very reputable suppliers from the West, you're at the price range of maybe $280 to $300 a kilowatt hour, which is maybe 50 to 60% cheaper than what it was even 2 or 3 years ago. If this continues, if this trend continues, and the cost of storage continues to drop to maybe, we do think it will reach, there will be a stability period for the next couple of years, but if it continues to drop, then it will become a no-brainer, and you will see a lot of storage projects coming online all over the world. Yeah.
Do you want to add anything there, Maher? Just unmute yourself. Yeah.
Yes, Bilin, the levelized cost of battery storage being hybridized in an existing project of PV generation really currently is not a good option, because the battery storage still under development to reach the prices that can be afforded to lenders. And this is really will be connected also in Jordan specifically with the government plans for these projects. So in principle, if you can find the good finance and there is potential opportunities to do it, that would be fine. But currently, I can't see that, unfortunately.
Okay. I'm going to do just two more questions. One is from the list and another one is like from the times we're living in. Is electricity the main energy demand for the Jordanian industrial sector? And what other initiatives apart from solar PV are there for industrial energy consumption reduction? Samir, this was originally for you, but I don't know, maybe in Ram you have some views as well. So I think it's hinting at, you know, don't you need heat rather than electricity?
Yes, of course. The industrial sector does consume a good amount, but maybe around 23% of the electricity generated in Jordan. But of course, they are consuming a lot more of the heat. But the good thing is that we have another revolution, maybe it's another seminar, for the concentrated solar heat. So the concentrated solar heat has prices has dropped drastically. And we are going to witness a very big movement in solar heat. At least I would say, estimate 100 industries will move towards solar heat instead of boilers within the next maybe 3 years or 2 years. So
that
yes, there
that
is
will be a huge change in terms of the output. Yeah.
Yeah, that's it.
Do you want to add anything, Imran?
Yeah, I agree. I think CSPs have this. I mean, so direct solar heat, you have some limitations, but if there are a few technologies out there, I think Azilio, for example, has signed a few things, but they've also moved to a PV-based heating system, but they will start off as a CSP provider.
I suppose it depends on the temperature, right?
Yes, it depends on the temperature, on the place, and whether you have direct radiation or not. I think one of the challenges will be at an industrial scale. Yes, I think individual companies can do that if, as Samir says, if those technologies become available. But at the grid scale, there is still not all the regions will have that accessibility. And considering it will depend a lot on how lithium ion moves. And I think lithium is moving
very
really fast in terms of the production capacity that's growing globally is massive. And as these guys continue to make it cheaper, I mean, they're basically building gigafactories by the dozens right now, and there's new innovation coming in there. So depends on who moves faster. But for now, I would bet on lithium over the next 2 or 3 years. Or
sorry, lithium over the longer period. I would agree with that. I just have one more last question, guys. This coronavirus situation, we're all in quarantine. I mean, obviously it's hitting projects right now, depending on where they're at. Obviously in the midterm, it's going to also be hitting the chain. But after all, say a year from now, do you think eventually is this going to help our cause as renewable energy, or is it going to go against it? And it has to be really short because we run out of time. So what is your opinion for each of you? You want to start? Samir, go ahead. You start.
Yeah, I think the number one priority right now is the national security of energy, because energy goes into all sectors. So each country has to supply their own energy to the maximum. Right now, let's say the borderline is to have 30 or 60 or 90 days maximum supply of oil. But with the current crisis, 90 days is not enough. For sure, storage is going to be in demand, big demand. We will see virtual power plants coming online. We will see a lot of movement in solar PV, unprecedented movement worldwide. You can bet on that.
Yeah, I like your optimism, Samir. It's quite contagious. How about you, Maher and Imran? Are you like optimistic or a little bit on the other side? Maher?
Bilin, I think after 1 year from now, the world would like to have some rest to think for the future. So I'm not really optimistic that after 1 year from now, they will proceed with renewables because really the current crisis is hitting the economy. So they will be focusing on other aspects other than this one. That's
So
my
you have a bit of both. Imran, you're going to break the tie.
So I think it boils down to the economics in the end, right? If you look at, there'll be two things that countries will look at. There'll be two things that individual countries will start looking at. One is energy security, I think, for themselves, and the second is going to be economics. If the renewables are cheaper, then no matter what the world situation is, if somebody's looking at two sources of generation and one is cheaper than the other, they're always going to go for the cheaper. And on that front, and to me, I think that is why solar has grown, right? The sustainability aspect and all that is great. It is required. But if solar today was sold at 20 cents per kilowatt hour, we wouldn't have this many installations. So the economics will continue to win. And I think based on that, we will continue to see renewables. And it is completely based on economics. Second thing is going to be energy security. If you're depending on other countries for oil to be able to produce your power, then I think those countries will start looking at renewable resources a little bit more so that they have some energy security, which is I think how Jordan also started moving towards renewables, right? When they had problems with natural gas coming in.
So Imran is a politician. You've said exactly what we wanted to hear. So
yeah,
thank you very much.
I think we'll live. It'll be a good time.
Thank you very much, Maher and Imran, for your time and for sharing your know-how with us. Thank you very much for everyone who's there in the audience. And the last piece of advice, you guys, stay home. Stay home, look after yourself, look after your people. We'll get out of this one. Thank you very much and see you soon.
Thank you. Thank you, everybody.